work for week 3. I want to compliment you guys on the great work that you've been doing so far this in Lockdown 2.0 and getting everything done and staying on top of your tasks. Really good job. I just want to show you guys what we're doing this week. So we are going to look at the rights of citizens. So there's a few different ones that we're going to look at. So as you go through your starter, I'm not going to go over the answers to this in the video. That's something because it's for you to do. It's a bit of recall from last week. So if these are the answers, the Senate and the CPC, what would the questions be? Write 2 questions for each one of these, if you can. Well, 1 for each would be fine. Okay, so do that. If Senate was the answer, if CPC was the answer, what would you ask to get that for? What question would you ask to get that for an answer? Okay, so this is what we're doing. Understand the reality of the right to vote and protest in China and the USA. So those are 2 examples we're looking at, protest and voting. All right, and as you go through, both countries have a constitution, and on paper they look really similar. So the Constitution it's a document that basically says what the government is and isn't allowed to do. And so a constitution, for example, is we have laws that tell people what they're not allowed to do, but what we also have is something that tells the government what it's allowed to do. So maybe if it makes a law that actually isn't fair to the people and takes away from their rights, like for example, if the government tried to make a law in the UK that said people aren't allowed to vote, that would go against people's rights in a democracy that we live in, where we vote. And that would be something that the Constitution would basically find that that's not allowed because the government can't do something that takes away the rights of its people. And so in the US and China, they both have constitutions, and this is number 3 if you look away on the write-on sheet. I'm going to try and remember to keep these on. Yeah, they're all numbers. So number 3 on the write-on sheet is what are some rights in the US and China Constitution? Rights listed there. And if you look at that, we have the right to vote, we have the right to stand for election, criticize the government, right to protest, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom of the press. But what we'll find when we look at these 2 issues, and those are the right to protest and the right to vote, is that they're very, very different in the way that they're actually practiced. So with that, we'll just kind of jump in. What I want you guys to do is read these 2 cases. So one is from China and one is from the US. So this is from Orlando and this is from Pingyao. And they kind of talk about the different ways that you would go about voting. All right, so once you've read those sources, I want you to have a wee look at this and see what is one difference source 1 says, but source 2 says this. Another difference that source 1 says is, but source 2 says this, and those are different. All right, so I want you to use these as sentence starters and restructure them so that it all fits in to what you're going to do. So you're going to have to rewrite this. So basically, you won't really want to have this ... You'd probably have it more like something like this. And I'll make sure that that's updated on your paper. Okay. And yeah, so try and get everything on there, and I will sort it out just now. Yeah, it's nearly there. Let me get rid of this line. All right, so everything's on the same page. I'll make sure that's updated on your thing. Okay, then nobody's perfect all the time, and you guys know that I'm far from it. All right, then you're going to go through, and so that's kind of how we're going to look at the difference in the right to vote and how it happens in America versus how it happens in China. And you'll have a good understanding. So these are primary sources of people talking about how they went about voting. All right, then you have the right to protest is the next one. And to do this, you've got USA on this side, China on this side. Those are 2 very different pictures. Yeah. And so the what you guys are going to do for here is, so I've got the handout. It's in the student write-on sheet. that's over here, and you're going to go through this handout. There's some videos of the videos that you guys can choose to watch that are in the PowerPoint. But you do need to answer these questions, all right? So these are questions, we had 1 through 5 up here. These are questions 6 through 9, and you're going through using this reading. I need you to answer these questions. But yeah, all right, so go through it. That's up to question 10, and that's basically it for your work through the things. So there's some examples from the Tiananmen Square, and then there's some, oh, I put it in the wrong place. This isn't supposed to be here. Apologies, guys. All right, and then you're going through, and the next thing you're doing, so that's it on the right to protest in China. And then you have the right to protest in the USA. All right, and pretty straightforward. What I need you to do here is go through and watch a couple of videos. Watch a couple of videos, okay? You're going to go through it, and if you look at this here, so you're going to go and try to figure out what are they protesting. All right? So that is protesting the right to have an abortion. Meat means murder, so what do you think they're protesting there? All right, I'll leave that with you. What do we think they're protesting there? And you might think it's controlling that, but it's actually, these are people saying that they want to have the right to own a gun. So that's a bit different. All right. All right. This is actually a protest where they're burning a model of a plane that fits into, that fits into, I think it was about the Malaysian air flight that they couldn't find. But basically that's a way that people can protest. They might protest Donald Trump. That's been something that's been happening. They could go both ways, because in the past, when this was originally made, it was a lot of protest against Donald Trump. But right now, if you watch in the news, it's the opposite, where there's people who are protesting against Joe Biden, and they're protesting in support of Donald Trump, and some of them have gone a few steps too far and invaded the Capitol building and stuff like that, which you guys would have seen earlier this month. So this is kind of an interesting photo, because just showing that photo at the time when this was originally put together, most of the protests were against Donald Trump, and now they're in favor of Donald Trump. So I don't know which way you would really focus on that here, but basically you can protest against leaders in America as well. So here's 2 videos for you guys to watch. All right, so just click those videos. If you're in the slideshows, easy way to do it. And then you're going to take notes under these headings. So the videos are also on the right on sheet. Might be easier if you click them there, because they don't quite do the same on PowerPoint unless you're in the actual slideshow. So you can click those links there, and then you're taking notes on these videos on the examples of how people were protesting. So a few examples of how they were protesting. Were they marching? Were they chanting? What were they doing? Reasons for their protests. All right. So why were they choosing to protest? And what was the reaction of the police? How did the police respond to the protest? Were they violent? Were they peaceful? How was it different from, thinking about how is it different from Tiananmen Square? Because you would have done that by the time you're doing that. Okay. Then your turn in task. Okay. Your turn in task. And this is going to be something, I'm going to put this into here. Sorry, I am struggling here. Right, so your turn in task that you're doing this week is how are the USA and China, or basically your turn in task is to do a diary entry on Tiananmen Square massacre. So you're going to imagine like you were one of the protesters in the video that you watched, and how this is the one that was in China where there was lots of people killed that you guys did the reading on at the top. All right. some things that you want to try to include are your date and time, your age. So do you want to be the same age that you are now, or do you want to be the age like an older age or a younger age? Why were you there? Why did you feel the need to be at the protest? Why was it important for you to be at the protest? You were taking quite a big risk by being there. What did you see? How did you feel? Were there any noises that you heard when the police came around? Were there any noises that you might want to point out? Details of how you got your injury, because we're just going to go ahead and say that you were injured. So here it is right there. You had been injured, but not killed. So how did you get your injury? What happened? What led to your injury? And what your feelings are towards the government now. All right, so how do you feel? You might have thought it was fair. Last discussion question. It kind of fits in with this one here. All right. And I'll change the discussion question that I had in there earlier. I'm going to put this in. So both the US, I'm changing this on the fly, guys, sorry. So special unformatted text. Okay, and I want you, sorry, this is not very professional of me. I shouldn't have had this done, but we're in too deep now. I don't want to change it. Okay. Falling to bits here, guys. Okay, so this is what I want you guys to do in the space below. Both people in America and China have the right to vote and the right to protest. But let's see, I'm just, sorry guys. All right, one other discussion question that I want you guys to do here is the same one that I had up there. Sorry. All right, one discussion question I want you guys to answer after you've written your diary entry. How do you think it would have been handled differently in America? And then, as a plenary task, we'll call this one optional because you guys will have done loads of work by the time you get up to here. All right, both in the US and China, they have the different rights, okay? But they're a bit different in the way that they can do it, all right? So both have the right to protest and the right to vote in the US and Chinese constitution. Do they have more say in China or the USA? So what do you think? Do people have more rights in China or do people have more rights in the USA? How is it different? And to consider this, I want you to look at what was voting like in China and how was voting handled in China and the USA, and how were protests handled in both countries? So that's something to look at when you're answering that. We'll call that optional, extension. I'll call it an extension for you, all right? And then make sure that you have loads of detail in your answer and stuff like that. And hopefully by the end, you can understand the reality of what it's like to vote in China and the USA, and you can give an example of protest, the right to protest being abused. And normally that's going to be something that's happening in China, wouldn't it? All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. I will speak to you later.